What's going on, College Hoops heads? This is, I don't want to say another episode. I don't really know what it is because this is the first time we're actually doing something like this. But my name is Stephen Bagell. I am joined by Julian Mendelsohn. And Julian and I had the opportunity, along with, frequent contributors, friends of the Center Hub, for, our preseason magazine, our March Madness guy that obviously just came out last week, friends of the pod, Riley, or friends of the program, Riley Frayne, Jake Hopestick, Tuck Clary. We were all in March Madness yesterday in Philadelphia. It was a quadruple header, so we saw 4 games. That was Friday the 20th. By the time you guys are watching this, it's either late Saturday night on the 21st or it's, right before the 22nd, where we have 2 more games to cover on Sunday.
We do.
Virginia and Tennessee.
Yeah, Virginia, Tennessee, and then UCLA, UConn.
Those are like 4 very good, brand. You know what I mean? Like national brand type games, all 4 of them.
Yeah, those are big teams.
Yeah. So with that said, that's obviously a 3 and 6 and 2 and 7 seeds all playing each other. With that, Julian and I, it was our first time both covering March Madness specifically, which was an unbelievable opportunity. Spoke with high-level coaches, players, saw great games. I mean, even the atmosphere, like it was awesome. Yeah. Julian, any thoughts before we actually dive into like the games?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with saying like Philly put on a great show. It was definitely more people there for the second session than the first session, which is kind of to be expected on a Friday afternoon. That more people would be there for the evening games in terms of work and stuff like that. But I thought the fans were great for all 4 games. Obviously shout out to the NCAA for agreeing to have us there. I thought
shout out to St. Joe's. St. Joe's as well.
Shout out to St. Joe's specifically for helping us out. I thought all the coaches spoke very, very well at the pressers that we saw. Even the coach that ended up losing. I thought all the players spoke very well. Just a really good atmosphere. I was talking to Steven how much of a great time I was having in the moment. I had a blast.
Yeah. Long day, though. Just to give like a little bit of inside perspective, we probably both got home about 2 a.m., give or take.
Yeah.
About 2 a.m.
So for those of you who are watching the games, obviously it doesn't matter necessarily when the first 2 games end. But the third game, UCLA-UCF, ended around 10 o'clock.
That's when UConn-Furman was supposed to tip,
exactly.
Just for perspective initially.
Yeah. So UConn-Furman was scheduled to tip at 10, which meant we probably would have been home around 1. UConn-Furman didn't end up tipping. I would say probably close. It was scheduled for 10:30. I think it was closer to 10:40 by the time the game tipped off. So we were in the press room with Dan Hurley around 1 a.m. He was tired. he was definitely tired.
And it was funny. Someone made a joke after the UCLA went over UCF in the press conference. Oh, UCLA just should have played the late game, and because they're accustomed to the West Coast time. And the beat writers are like, "Nope, we're good. We're happy to get out of here." So that was a little fun perspective. I hope Mick Cronin also got his Joe's cheesesteak. Shout out to Joe's steak and soda in Fishtown.
Yeah, it seemed like Mick Cronin was adapting to the area well. He got D'Alessandro's, which they could have done better. I'm not going to knock him for it because that's probably what was recommended. And then I know they got Joe's cheesesteaks after the game as well. So shout out Mick.
Yeah. So let's just go in order of the games that happened. So the first game that tipped off at 1:50 was Virginia versus Wright State. Virginia won 82-73. You guys see I saw my box scores from yesterday as well. So if you see me looking down, I'm probably referencing something from there. Both teams shot really well from 3. I mean, Wright State was 13-31. Virginia was 13-26. That's obviously 42% and 50% respectively. And it basically prompted Julian and I to each ask a question. Julian to Clint Sargent, Wright State's head coach, me to Ryan Odom, which Julian and I basically had the same question for Ryan Odom. I was just the one to ask it first.
Yeah.
But basically, it's, the final score is 82-73. So, yeah, maybe it's a close game for 3-14. But, I don't think the score, that 9-point game was the largest lead for Virginia of the whole day. That final score. So it was honestly a much closer game. Wright State was winning by, I think, 3 with under 5 minutes left. So they were in it for, I'd say, about 38 minutes of the game. Maybe even longer. Because again, that 9-point finish was the largest lead of the game for Virginia. But with that said, I mean, Wright State played really well. Clint Sargent didn't, get maybe a little choked up. At least that was my interpretation of it when he was talking about how young his team is, some of the experience. But it was a valiant effort from Wright State nonetheless. Jakari White, though, played 24.5 minutes off the bench for Virginia. Julian, I hadn't realized this. He had 26 points, 10 and 12 from the field, 6 of 8 from 3. I didn't realize Virginia's almost entire team, how inexperienced they are. In terms of a lot of them are older. This was Jakari White's first ever March Madness game. Malik Thomas, who is the second leading scorer behind DeRitter, and DeRitter obviously has the overseas experience. This was his first March Madness game. Malik Thomas, this was his second, but his first one he played in 1 minute 3 years ago for USC. So 1 minute, he had 1 minute of March Madness experience. It was probably garbage time, whatever it may be. So this is basically Malik Thomas's, at least his first game as a substantial player to a team. Sam Lewis was at Toledo. We know, Toledo's had issues getting over the hump last couple of years. He's never played in a March Madness game.
Grunlow.
So we'll get to it because, again, we're going to preview that Virginia-Tennessee game. But, I don't know. Obviously, Johan Grunlow as well, the starting center. He's also an international guy, never played a game in March Madness. It's just something I think that we should consider when, trying to predict, this Virginia and Tennessee game tomorrow.
I do want to say, though, because this game was close throughout, right? There were moments where it felt like Virginia was going to pull away. Wright State kept coming back. I don't think that this game was close because Virginia played poorly. I would like that to be known. Wright State was fantastic yesterday. Defensively, they were very, very disciplined. I think they did a really, really good job of getting different guys involved throughout the game. What was Igmaribe? Is that his name? The big for Wright State.
Something, yeah. Again, I'm not the best with pronunciations, but
I really like the way that they started having him, take Grunlow out of the paint and having him hit threes. I think that was really, really well planned out. But credit to UVA and Ryan Odom because like you said, they had no March Madness experience, but another team, I think, and I think a lesser coach team loses this game, and it's a huge upset. Because the amount of times that Wright State fought tooth and nail to stay in this game, and not even stay in this game, to be in a position where they were close to winning this game.
Yeah.
There are plenty of times where we've seen a higher seed, lose it down the stretch in a game like this. And Wright State played the part of doing their best to stage an upset here. I can't take anything away from them. I don't really think they did much wrong in the game either. They didn't really turn the ball over a ton. They didn't get dominated on the boards. They went toe-to-toe offensively with UVA. I just think at the end of the day, UVA had a couple of guys who hit big shots. Jakari White had 5 points, towards the end of the game there. He had a driving layup and then a huge 3. Both with about, a minute to a minute and a half to go. I think those were the difference in the game. But that was just a great game between two really good teams. I don't think you can really say anything negative. Maybe, if I were to criticize somewhere, and I think Ryan mentioned it, that they could have been a bit better defensively. But I don't think that Tennessee is really going to be capable of doing what Wright State did with Igmaribe in terms of stretching the floor like that. So I think it's a different matchup.
And for what it's worth, I believe it was one of the Wright State beat writers yesterday in the press conference said that was more threes than he's ever shot in his career. He shot in one game yesterday. But yeah, Julian brought up the point of something I started saying, and then I guess just went on a tangent there. Every time Virginia, our question around him at the press conference and what Julian asked Consulgent as well was, every time it seemed like Virginia was about to pull away, Wright State responded every single time. It was, you don't see a 14 seed, do that often.
No.
There was one time, who was it? It was White, and maybe it was Thomas or Dorito. They hit back-to-back threes at one point.
I think it was Lewis.
But either way.
Yeah.
Virginia's back-to-back threes, Julian and I looked at each other and said, okay, yeah, this will start pulling away. Immediately, Wright State goes down and nails the three.
They went on a 5-0 run.
Yeah.
They cut the game back to one or two within 2 possessions of that.
Yeah. So, again, it's nothing Virginia did wrong. It was just the nature of this game and 2 good teams, 2 well-coached teams. It was fun. But, Wright State just did not concede anything. They got punched in the mouth. They got punched in the mouth right back.
I think, honestly, if they face a different 3 seed, I think they win that game. I think it's unfortunate they ended up with Virginia, but I think a majority of the top, for example, if they were the 16 and they're playing Duke and they were punching them in the face like that, I don't think Duke wins that game. If I'm being honest.
I'm trying to think of which 3 seed, because this example, Illinois, Gonzaga, Michigan State. Those are 3. Yeah.
I think if they play Gonzaga, they win that game. I think if they play Purdue, they win that game. I know Purdue's a 2 seed. I think if they, like I said, I think if they play Duke, they win that game. I think if they play UConn, they win that game. UConn wasn't outside of Terrace Reed, which we'll get to. UConn wasn't particularly almighty.
Yeah.
Yesterday either, but I think a lot of credit has to go to Ryan Odom in Virginia, because they, like I said, it's very tough in a game like that when you have a much lower seed hanging around as long as Wright State did. And staying in the game and taking leads and all that stuff. Usually the longer that game stays close is when you see an upset. And Virginia was great, and they pulled it out.
Is there anything else we need to mention, or should we move on to Miami, Ohio, and Tennessee?
I mean, I'd be remiss if we didn't at least talk about Jakari White a little bit more and how good he was. How big his shot selection was, how he was really the guy who, when they needed a basket in that game, it was Jakari White. I think Dritter and Grunlow were okay. I don't think Thomas had his best game of the season. I think, Lewis got teed up at one point, which was not great. On a lesser day, that could have cost them big time, because he got teed up when they were up 1, just drew a foul, and they were down 3 after he got teed up. But yeah, Jakari White, he was the guy that really ran the ship, I think, for UVA today off the bench yesterday.
Yeah. And one of the best shooters in the nation for his entire college career. He's a career 41, 42% 3-point shooter on pretty high volume. He's unbelievable that North Dakota State was able to retain him for 3 years.
He missed 2 shots yesterday. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Tennessee and Miami, Ohio.
That was the stinker.
Yeah. Admittedly, this is the game that Julian and I just were kind of busy doing, for lack of a better term, other things. Just because, again, the way it's structured, we needed to make sure we aid. We needed to do the press conferences for the first games. It was just a weird timing of how it worked. So, we saw
the first half.
Yeah, we saw about from 15 minutes until halftime of the first half, because we did go a little into Virginia and Wright State's press conference. We missed about the first 5 minutes, and then we probably missed about the first 7 minutes of the second half.
Yeah.
maybe 6, about either way. But by that point, the game was, blown wide open for Tennessee. Everyone who says Miami, Ohio doesn't belong, yes, I know they lost. I'm actually happy Miami, Ohio got to play in Dayton in the first 4 and beat SMU to show this team was capable of beating high majors. Because honestly, it's no fault of their own. They just didn't really stand a chance against Tennessee.
No.
So I'm glad this wasn't their first game. That they just went into the tournament 31-1 and then just got, for lack of got the shit kicked in by Tennessee. I'm glad they got that win against SMU to show that they were a deserving tournament team.
And I think the other thing, let's talk about how bad that matchup was.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important here. The size that Tennessee has.
Yeah.
You've got 6'10" Nate Ament. You've got Felix Okpara off the bench. You've got JP Estrella. I know I'm missing a couple of other guys. And then to go along with that, you have elite guard play, including the guy who I thought was the best player on the court last night, Jacoby Gillespie. It is very hard for Miami, Ohio to have won that game.
So just to get perspective on the height real quick, the average D1 height is 77.4 inches, according to Ken Palm. They're at 77.5, Miami, Ohio, which is 152nd in the nation. Tennessee, meanwhile, 78.4, which is 38th in the country.
And that's not factoring in as well. You got to remember they have 2 smaller guards on that team.
Yeah.
So that size average is purely based off of Tennessee's front court.
Yeah. But yeah, Jacoby Gillespie, 29 points, 9 assists, shot 11-21, 6 of 11 from 3. It's tough to even understate how good he was offensively.
Honestly, take the 3-point line, take 3 or 4 steps back, big steps. That's where he was shooting threes from. Yeah. Easily. With regularity. I think he had 16 or 17. He was close to 20 in the first half alone.
He had more than 20, I think. I think he had 21 at halftime, if I remember correctly.
You might have, you're right. Yeah. But they had no answer for Jacoby Gillespie, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think it's the nature of how he scored it. As we said, when it was a game, he just scored at will and had 21 points at halftime. By the time, let me see, at halftime, they were already up by 19. So, he kind of, I don't want to say took his foot off the gas pedal, but, he only had 8 second half points, I believe. So, it was the nature of how he scored it and when he scored them.
Yeah, he was the one who got them that lead. I think Estrella ended up with a double-double in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, he did.
But yeah, it's unfortunate. Shout out Peter Suter. I think Peter Suter had a great game.
27 points.
27. Ian Elmer really, really struggled, which I think was a big deal for them. He's been really good from behind the arc all year. Atlason never really got going for them. Skaljak never really got going for them. It was pretty much just Suter, So I think they didn't have their best game, Miami, Ohio, and they needed to in a matchup that's pretty tough for them to begin with. And, Tennessee put their foot on the gas early on and didn't really ever look like relinquishing control in that game.
For what it's worth, Suter at 27 of Miami, Ohio's 56. That's literally 1 point. If you had one more point, it would have been half of the points. And he was the only scorer in double figures. Brant Byers had 9. Otherwise, nobody else had more than 4. So, it was really just Suter and nothing else. Do we want to touch on Nate Ament? Over 18 minutes, 0 points, 0-3, and he had 3 turnovers. Again, just for people that watch this full NBA draft content, it was a rough watch.
Look, I'll be honest. I was a big believer in him early in the process. He was in my top 10 on boards in October. I don't see how he's a lottery pick at this point. Yeah. After what we saw. And there's another kid who I feel the same way about after what we saw that we'll talk about later on. But especially in a game where Miami was the weaker team, Tennessee is the team that should be winning this game. You need Nate Ament, who I actually thought could have been an X factor in this game if it was closer. With his length, his versatility, his ability to shoot, right, put the ball on the floor. To be a complete net zero in this game, I think is a resounding case as to why he shouldn't be in the lottery. And I don't think it's going to be easier for him on Sunday.
Against Virginia. Yeah.
It's going to get much tougher for him on Sunday.
Okay. Anything else you want to touch Tennessee, Miami, or shall we move on to UCF and UCLA?
Yeah, there's not really much to say. Sorry for any Tennessee or Miami fans who wanted to hear more about this game.
What I will say, Miami, Ohio fans definitely travel. Like when they played in Dayton, like obviously Dayton, Ohio, Miami, Ohio, like though they're in, distance of being able to attend, there was a lot of Miami, Ohio fans there. For what it's worth. They travel well. Yeah. UCLA 75, UCF 71. This game, I don't want to call it ugly. It was very okay. Then it was ugly.
I'm gonna be look, Steven, we saw a team turn the ball. I can get started on this one because
go ahead.
No one who has much more beef with it. Not beef, but negativity to say about it. UCLA should have done to UCF what Tennessee did to Miami, Ohio. If we're being completely honest. UCF missed double-digit free throws. They had double-digit first-half turnovers. They had more for pretty much the entire first half. UCF had more turnovers than field goals made at halftime. And towards the end of the game, they had more missed free throws than three-pointers made. They were terrible yesterday. I thought that they were just very, very sloppy. It wasn't a talent difference. They have guys that can certainly compete with a team like UCLA. They just played very, very poorly, in my opinion. I know we didn't end up getting the chance to talk to Johnny Dawkins about it, but I honestly, UCLA should have been up by a lot more than they were at halftime. They should not have let that game get close. I was very surprised that we saw that game take as long as it did at the end. That game should have been wrapped up with 10 minutes to go in the second half.
Yeah. So UCF had 17 turnovers. They also shot 5 of 16 from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Which I looked at it because Mick Cronin in the press conference after someone talked to him about it, he said, did you ever consider that was part of our game plan? Insinuating that part of the game plan was when a guy who's a poor free throw shooter gets the ball, just to foul him and make them earn it. They shot 5 of 16 from the free throw line. 14 of the 16 free throws were shot by JaMichael Stillwell and John Ball. Ball was 0 for 5. Stillwell was 4 for 9. The other two, Riley Kugel, went 1 for 2. Otherwise, no. But so when Cronin says, did you consider that was part of the game plan? I do believe that. Not like he would lie or anything about the game plan, but they clearly made a concerted effort to foul those two guys rather than, let them score on the post, especially without Tyler Bilodeau. Bilodeau, we did see have, I don't know if it was a knee brace, maybe it was a knee sleeve.
It looked more like
warm-ups. Yeah, it was more like a sleeve. But we saw him initially warming up, thought he was going to go, and then immediately, once they went in the layup line for final warm-ups, he was in sweatpants, just high-fiving guys on the court, he wasn't even a part of the layup line. So at that point, Julian pointed out to me, I said, no, Drew, and I agree with that assessment. He's not going to play. That does not look like a guy who's about to play in a March Madness game. Cronin said after the fact at the press conference that he woke up sore. He obviously being Bilodeau, not Cronin. Bilodeau woke up sore. And Cronin didn't like how he was moving around and shoot around. So Cronin basically made a decision and said, I'm not going to, full verbatim in the press conference, he said, I'm not going to put that kid in harm's way. And opted, to tell Bilodeau he's not playing. Sky Clark obviously lost a tooth. He did get dental work. He has a fake tooth in now. He's in a couple weeks. Jay Copestick was there today at the media availability, and Sky Clark already had a tooth in. So he's getting a full replacement in a couple weeks, apparently, is what Sky Clark told friend of the program, Jake. Otherwise, yeah, UCLA shot 13 of 18 from the free throw line. Trent Perry was 7 for 10. He's an, I think, 88 or 87% free throw shooter, Cronin said. And Sky Clark was 1 for 3. He's an 88% free throw shooter. So, like, very uncharacteristic of them. Obviously, against UConn, they cannot afford, to make those mistakes. I also think it's worth noting UCF had 20. In second chance points, UCF had 20, UCLA had 9. Jermichael Stillwell alone had 7 offensive rebounds. But Jordan Burks had 2, John Bull had 2, Themis Folks had 2, and Riley Kugel had 3. So and Devon Cambridge had 3. So they had 25 offensive rebounds, UCF. And we're going to talk about Travis Reed next with UConn. What do you think against Furman? If you're letting collectively those guys, no disrespect to UCF, those guys aren't known for like their interior presence.
Half of them are guards.
Yeah, exactly. So 25 offensive rebounds, UCLA gave up. Maybe Bilodeau being back alleviates some of those because he's the de facto 5 for them. Him and Xavier Booker will probably split those minutes. But what's Travis Reed going to do this team tomorrow if this is what they allowed UCF to do?
Honestly, I think the big issue for UCLA is twofold. One, I don't think they're going to be able to turn UConn over quite as easily as they were with UCF. I do want to commend them though, because the UCLA defense was flying everywhere.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the most, positive takeaway for them from the game. You could talk about Donovan Dent as well, who didn't turn the ball over.
I have that up next.
But I think the important thing to talk about with UCLA is how active they are defensively. It was not, obviously there were some bad passes here and there, but they did a really, really good job of disrupting UCF's half-court offense and forcing a lot of these turnovers, and it gave them a lot of transition opportunities, which they took. And I think that's something to give them credit for as well. Do you know the fast break? Can you give me the fast break?
I just looked at it as you said that 21-12 in UCLA's favor.
Yeah, the 21 fast break points they were really, really good at forcing turnovers, getting down the floor in numbers.
Points off turnovers, UCLA 19-14. Felt like it was more.
It did. It could be some at the line, stuff like that, but they did a really good job. Last thing in general, I want to talk about before we talk about Den. I think Daly Jr. was their best player.
Yeah.
When it came to putting ball in hoop, he short-armed a couple of jumpers early, missed one close to the hoop early, but once he got going, they had a dynamic offensive player. I thought Xavier Booker played really well for them as well. I think that's, especially if Bilodeau can't go tomorrow, that's really, really huge for them to have Booker shooting the ball well going forward. I do think this UCLA team is very good. But I think that they should have, finished their breakfast and put this UCF team away a little bit earlier than they did.
The best version of tomorrow's game, UCLA and UConn, is with Silas Damari and Tyler Bilodeau both playing. Well, again, we don't know. I did see Silas Damari tweeted the eye emojis for what that's worth. He tweeted that about an hour ago. So we'll see. As I looked at the NCAA's injury report for March Madness before we started recording, they were both still questionable. So we'll see. We'll talk about, obviously, Damari's absence in a couple minutes with UConn and Furman, that game. But it is worth noting, points off turnovers we already talked about. UCLA only turned it over 8 times, and UCF has 14 points off turnovers. So basically, they scored off every turnover except for one, is what basically that says to me.
Well, but I mean, you know where that's from. That was the press. Yeah. Pretty much all of those turnovers were when UCF started pressing. UCLA turned the ball over quickly, and UCF turned it into quick points.
Yeah.
I think that's also a big thing to talk about as well, of what got them back into the game. Jordan Burks had some huge shots to make that game a lot closer than it should have been for UCF as well. But when you look at the numbers for points off turnovers, it's definitely UCF forced probably 3 or 4 backcourt turnovers that led to points.
So I'm just doing quick math here. Burke shot 8 of 15. So everyone outside of Burks on UCF shot 19 of 57, which is 33%. So, like, yes, Burks was phenomenal, but, like, the rest of the team, and that factors in the free throw woes. That doesn't factor in the free throw woes, everything else. The last thing I wanted to mention, and who Julian wants to mention as well, with that UCLA-UCF game is Donovan Dent. Julian alluded to it already. He went the distance. He played every single second, played the full 40 minutes, didn't have a single turnover. And at this point, he's basically on a historic run of taking care of the ball. If you include last night's game, in his last 9 games, which is going back to the game against Illinois on February 21st. Today's March 21st. So in the last month, 9 games, 83 assists, 6 turnovers.
That's preposterous.
That's 13.8 to 1 assist to turnover ratio over a 9-game span. One of those games, that's also 9.2 assists per game for anyone counting at home. 9.2 assists per game. One of those games, their last game in the Big Ten Championship where they lost to Purdue, he only played 10 minutes because he left the game with an injury. So, like, he's actually 9.2 assists with only playing 10 minutes, having 1 assist in one of those games. If you take that out, let's do quick math again, real quick. So that's 83 assists. If we factor in just the 8 games, he's averaging 10.3 assists per game.
Yeah.
Over an 8-game span rather than a 9-game. But, like, either way, like, 83 assists, 6 turnovers in a 9-game span, like, that is literally historic. And there was a lot of concern about Dent early in this year. Like, he really needed time to acclimate himself to UCLA, but, like, he's definitely, seems to have found his groove, to say the least.
Yeah, I think, the interesting thing with watching him play is he doesn't always look like he's taking over the game.
Yeah.
But he's just always making, he's just making the right plays so often than not. And sometimes you'll see him, he will do something that you're like, whoa, out of your seat, right? But, like, when I talked about the press a couple of minutes ago as well, like, when they were breaking the press easily, the ball was going into Donovan Dent's hands. Every single time the ball went into Donovan Dent's hands, they broke the press.
Yeah.
He is, if they're going to win games in March, which, again, they're capable of doing, this UCLA team, even without Bilodeau, and I know I was harsh earlier, they should have, and I'm not going to, I'm going to double down. They should have beaten this UCF team by a lot more, but they do look very good. And certainly capable of making a run in this tournament based on what we've seen.
Yeah, Dan shot 4-17.
He didn't shoot well.
But 6 steals, still at 10 points, 5 assists, again, 40 minutes, no turnovers. Like, very rarely do you see a guy with that poor of a shooting performance still, like, make that much of an impact, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Okay. Last game, UConn and Furman. This one will, like, I told Julian pregame, I told a lot of people this pregame, like, this Furman team is not a typical 15 seed. Like, they were injured all year. They finally got healthy and rang the table at the SoCon tournament, which John and I talked a little bit about. John, my co-host for One and Done, he covered the SoCon tournament. So he saw how good this Furman team was at full strength prior to this game. Again, 82-71, but, like, Furman always fell within, like, 6 or 7 points the entire. They were within 6 or 7 points almost the entire game. UConn pulled away very late. There was basically, I think, with 3.5 minutes left about, they got back-to-back Taurus Reed offensive rebounds. After missing 3 straight shots, got back-to-back offensive rebounds. The 4th possession after the 3rd straight offensive rebound, Caravan hit a 3.
Yeah.
Not only was that the dagger because Caravan hit the 3 and they gave him 3 points, but there was 3.5 minutes left when the possession started. There was about 2:15 left. by the time the Caribbean 3 went in and the first, the possession started.
That possession was
killing the clock.
That possession was funny too, because Terrace Reed gets the rebound initially off of a missed free throw, and he had a layup.
He had a wide open, he was at the
wide open layup, and he brings the ball back out. And I was saying, I'm like, why didn't he just take the easy
They wanted
layup?
to kill the clock of
right. Yeah. They wanted to kill the clock, and then Terrace Reed decides he's going to get 2 more offensive boards and then set up a Caribbean 3. And I was like, okay, well,
shout out to Terrace Reed, 31 points, 27 rebounds. Who was it? They said there was the first 30 and 25 game in 60 years. Who was it? Elvin Hayes? Was it? Elvin Hayes. I think it was 19.
Might have been 68.
Yeah, they said almost 60 years. So, yeah, I think it was 69. That would be 56, 57 years about. But, yeah, Terrace Reed, was just unreal. 11 offensive boards, 16 defensive boards. He had 27 rebounds. Furman as a team had 23 rebounds. So he outscored the entire team.
Rebounded.
Out-rebounded the entire team. He almost outscored. I mean, no. Furman put a 71. But, again, 31-27. He out-rebounded the entire Furman team. And, that's no disrespect to Cooper Bowser or Charles Johnston, the big men that Furman had. They're good. But, again, Terrace Reed, he's NBA player, I think is safe to say, even if he ends up being a second-round pick late first. I think he'll play. He's going to have more than a cup of coffee in the NBA, most likely.
He could. And I think the thing was, Furman wasn't even doing a terrible job boxing out.
No.
He was just everywhere. It felt like every time the ball came off the cylinder in some way, shape, or form, Terrace Reed was there.
I think. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was going to say, I think back to the one play where, he's at the wrong end of the floor. He's coming up the court. Braylon Mullins drives, loses the ball, around, towards the foul line area. And Reed, who has just been jogging up the court to, not jogging, but coming back up the court to get back into the action, finds the ball, picks it up, scoops up a floater, and puts it in. That was how it went. That was the entire game. Terrace Reed was just in the right place, out muscling guys, doing the right stuff, and he had 15. He had 17 and 15 and a half.
Yeah. What was it? There was 11 minutes and 30 seconds left in the first half. So we were about 8.5 minutes into the game. It was a media timeout. I look up at Julian and go, Julian, do you notice Terrace Reed has 11 and 11?
Yeah, he had a double-double.
He's 8.5 minutes into the game.
He had a double-double playing 8.5 minutes.
I said to Julian when we saw it, I said, that has to be the quickest double-double in the history of college basketball. I cannot confirm or deny it, but someone let us know. Let us know in the comments. It's worth noting Furman shot 9 and 24 from 3. Obviously, Alex Wilkins is unreal. That kid's a freshman. 6'5". He could shoot. He's unbelievable. I hope a team like Furman is able to keep Alex Wilkins around. I don't think they'll be able to because
it's going to be very hard, especially after the way he played.
He's a freshman. So every high major, we could get 3 years of eligibility with this kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, Bob Ritchie, I don't want to speak for Bob Ritchie, obviously, but he's due for, if not this year, then definitely next year. He's going to get a new job at some point, a high major job at some point. And Dan Hurley agrees with us because he said that in the press conference. He said, unfortunately for Furman, coaches like Bob Ritchie, you're not going to be able to keep him around.
Yeah. He's been in the mix for a couple of years now. It wouldn't shock me if over the next year.
Well, he was actually interviewed for South Carolina before they hired Lamont Paris. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't shock me if Lamont Paris has another down year next year, South Carolina, and if Bob Ritchie's still available, that could be the guy. But anyway, Furman, 9 of 24 from 3. UConn, 5 of 25. Salou Ball shot 1 of 6 from 3. Salou Ball was not good, if I'm being honest. I like Salou Ball. He's UConn's leading scorer. But I think because Malachi Smith is basically a non-factor away from the rim, I just feel like Furman was able to, with obviously South Stamari out, I feel like Furman was able to just not let Ball get his shots off the way. Because some of them did feel a little forced. But like again, when you have Damari out and you know Malachi Smith's either going to either drive and kick it, that makes Solomon Ball's life a little bit harder. So I think that's what a lot of it came down to. Now, if they shoot 5 of 25 tomorrow against UCLA, I don't know if they're going to win. But Julian, what's your assessment of UConn, the shooting rules, everything like that?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We can talk about how great of a performance it was for Terrace Reed, and it was. I don't want to discount it, but I also want to kind of emphasize how important it was because they weren't shooting.
No.
If Terrace Reed doesn't do what he does, they could have lost that game. The only thing that Furman didn't have an answer for that last night was Terrace Reed.
Yeah.
I mean, UConn was 1-11 at the half from beyond the arc. Karaban, yeah, he got going in the second half, sure. But the reason he was able to get going in the second half, the entire offense became predicated, the entire defense for Furman became predicated on stopping Terrace Reed.
Yeah.
They
kept trapped. It just got to a point where they trapped him every time he got the ball in double team.
They were forced to double him on every single touch.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have to do that, if they were able to play straight up for large portions of that game, I really don't think UConn was really putting them under a ton of pressure outside of, Terrace Reed. And I think a lot of the looks that Karaban got in the second half that he was able to convert once he got going were a result of, I know Reed only had 3 or 4 assists, but a lot of it was, kick, swing.
He had 3 assists. I want to say all 3 of those are probably kickouts to Karaban for 3.
But I'm sure there's more hockey assists in there somewhere.
Or it's Karaban just missing the 3 because Karaban shot 4 of 9. So like there were all 5 missed threes accounted for in there. That like Reed could have kicked it out and he missed.
Yeah. But like really, like what Terrace Reed is the reason that Furman is out of the tournament right now.
Yeah.
And I think especially if Bilodeau is back, which jury's still out on, from what Cronin said, it really seems like it's going to be a decision that gets made tomorrow, depending on how he's feeling. Like, if they don't have that center matchup, they're really going to be in trouble. If they're going to need a big game from Karaban, I think. He's going to have to win that matchup with Eric Daly because I don't think their guards can compete with Dent and Perry right now. So I think Karaban has to win the matchup, and I think honestly, Terrace Reed needs to win the matchup again against Bilodeau if he's playing, and Booker.
Or Xavier Booker.
Yeah, if it's not Bilodeau. That's where it's going to come down to because these UConn guards, I'm not a big Damari guy. I know he's a good guard, but I still think even if Damari plays, I don't think he's better than what UCLA offers with that backcourt. So the UConn front court needs to step up. Braylon Mullins needs to step up. He was not very good overall the other night as well. And people have him projected as a lottery pick. I'm not a believer in that based on what I've seen.
So going off of that, when Silas Damari first committed to UConn, like I don't want to misquote anyone, but someone affiliated with UConn said this is the next Tristan Newton. Tristan Newton was an All-American coming from, well, obviously he was an All-American in UConn, not at East Carolina, but like he developed from a East Carolina point guard into an All-American. He won most outstanding player in the Final Four. So those were already such lofty expectations that Damari had to live up to and hasn't. And that's not his fault. Like that someone else made it. But either way, we'll have to see if Damari plays tomorrow, but he has obviously not been Tristan Newton. No one's Tristan Newton. I mean, he's unbelievable. Braylon Mullins, 0 of 8 from 3. Again, UConn shot 5-25 from 3. Karaban made 4 of those 5. The other one was Salo Ball. So outside of Karaban, they shot 1 of 16 from 3.
That's not good enough.
Again, 1 of 14. Ball and Mullins combined to go 1 of 14. Smith missed 1 and Jaden Ross missed 1. Jalen Stewart also out. Hopefully, for UConn's sake, he's also back. Because they had no depth. Smith was overextended playing for Damari starting. He had 7 assists, like he was fine. But again, he's still ideally for UConn, the backup point guard. And Jaden Ross had to play 21 minutes. Eric Rebe, 5 minutes, 4 fouls. Like
he committed 2 fouls in about a minute and a half.
Yeah. But like, my point is they don't have a lot of depth on this team, especially when Damari and Jalen Stewart are both out. Like they use Alec Millender, the shooter. He played at a really small mid-major last year. IU Indy, but he shot 44% from threes. UConn brought him in to be a 3-point specialist.
He didn't hit a 3.
Well, he only played 7 minutes.
Well, he didn't hit a 3 in the 7 minutes.
But the point is, like, that's who they had to play for their depth because of these injuries. Okay, that's everything from yesterday. We're going a little long, but that's fine. Let's somewhat quickly talk about the 2 games tomorrow, because like we kind of previewed some of these games with these matchups that like from yesterday. At 6:10 tomorrow night, Sunday, we will be having Virginia and Tennessee. Typically would be a very defensive-minded game, just how Rick Barnes and formerly Virginia coach Shawnee Bennett would coach. This Virginia team is not, the traditional Tony Bennett team. So, yeah. I mean, they're still 16th in the country defensively. They're still phenomenal. But they're not, top 5, top 6 level like they were when Tony Bennett was there. Very fun offense. Like, again, I don't want to keep reiterating these Tony Bennett teams, but like they used to win games like 47-45. Like that's not what this game's going to be.
They're not going to do that.
Virginia plays at a very slow pace, but very efficient offense. Tennessee also plays at a slow pace. So like in a game like that where possessions are limited because both teams, play with a slower tempo and have good defenses, I'm in, like every possession matters that much more. Because KenPom has this as Tennessee winning by 1. 70-69 is what KenPom has.
I actually think Tennessee takes this game.
Okay.
And I think we kind of touched on some of the reasons as to why. This Virginia team, they're playing damn well. Don't get me wrong, but they have not been taken into deep waters in March Madness. Rick Barnes has been here a billion times. And I think if the game comes to that, I trust Rick Barnes. And I know some of the guys on that court have done this before. I have a little bit more confidence in Rick Barnes to get it done than Ryan Odom at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, both phenomenal coaches.
This isn't meant as a shot to Odom. I think Odom is doing a phenomenal job there, and I think he will continue to.
Hold on. I'm curious, just very quickly, what each of those conferences are in March Madness. So I'm looking at ACC first. Duke's 2-0, Virginia 3-0, Miami 4-0, Carolina 4-1, Clemson 4-2, Louisville 1-1, so 5-3. NC State lost to playing 5-4. SMU lost 5-5. SEC, meanwhile, because I know like we talked yesterday when we were there about the SEC struggling. So I'm just curious. I'm just doing this quickly. Florida 1-0, Alabama 2-0, Arkansas 3-0, Vanderbilt 4-0, Tennessee 5-0, A&M 1-1, so that's 6-1. Georgia 6-2, Kentucky 7-2, Missouri lost 7-3. Texas, did they lose to BYU yet? I saw they were losing.
They are up by 5 with 2:25 to go against
Gonzaga. Gonzaga. They're beating Gonzaga?
They're up 5 against Gonzaga right now.
Wow. So let's say before that game, that's 8-3. SEC's doing well. We said yesterday they might not have been. They're 8-3. So like typically that does mean something, like especially, the Mountain West, their whole history of not like usually the whole conference either does well or does poorly.
And usually the Big Ten stinks.
Yeah.
Because they both burn themselves out.
Well, I think that's going to be different this year. That already is different this year. But either way, like Tennessee also number 1 in the country in offensive rebound percentage. Virginia doesn't have that much size for like a high major. We already talked about Tennessee size against Miami, Ohio. They have a size advantage on Virginia as well. Like, and again, we already talked about Virginia's inexperience with a lot of these guys. Like, yeah, they have Unyogo and Yesu, who played for Kentucky. They have he comes off the bench. They have Dallin Hall as a starting point guard. He has experience playing at BYU in tournament games. But like overall, like I think the top 4 or 5 scorers all new to this. Like it's just unfamiliar territory. Well, Tennessee, Jacoby Gillespie is built for this. Felix
Yeah.
Akpara is built for this.
I don't think as well that, again, while Malik Thomas and Dallin Hall both good players, I don't think they're going to be able to slow down Gillespie.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I have for Tennessee, Virginia. Should we move on to UCLA?
Who's your pick? Who you taking?
Oh, shoot. I want to say Virginia because I was tooting the Virginia horn all year, like when they were assembling this roster. I do agree with you, though. I do think Tennessee wins this game. I think it's going to be like Ken Palm has as a 1-point spread. Like I think it is that. Like I think it's a coin flip. But yeah, I'll take Tennessee. I don't want to say it's a coin flip as my cop out answer. That if I'm wrong, whatever. But I'll go Tennessee. UCLA UConn. This is an interesting one because going into the tournament, I actually had UCLA upsetting UConn in my bracket in the second round.
I do too.
After yesterday, I'm not so sure.
Really? I see it the other way. I'm more convinced now.
UCLA just did not put away UCF again. They gave up that many offensive rebounds to what number was it? Hold on. Let me pull up my box scores.
It was 25.
25 offensive rebounds to the whole team at UCF. Taurus Reed just might eat them, or Taurus Reed might just eat them alive,
So that's the only thing that I'd be concerned about. But I think every other part of this matchup, I like UCLA better. I like.
It depends. It's a cop-out answer. It really depends how UConn's going to shoot it. Like, that's really what it's going to come down to. If UConn shoots 35% from three, they're going to win the game.
I think also if Bilodeau plays, I don't think those rebounding numbers look nearly as bad. So I think that's going to be a big key too. I know they won the game. I was, again, outside of Taurus Reed, I was really not impressed with UConn whatsoever.
I thought Caravan was really good, but
I thought he was given a lot of looks. I just think everything revolved around Taurus Reed, if I'm being honest, on both sides of the floor. And again, it worked against Furman, but this is high major size that you're playing against now. And I really don't think that at the end of the day, like, UConn has what UCLA does talent-wise. And it's not a crazy coaching advantage either. It wasn't in the first game. But, like, McCrum's a great coach as well.
It's also worth noting D1 experience, UConn is 22nd, UCLA is 14th. So these are two very experienced teams that, like, again, like how we said Tennessee, Jacoby Gillespie and Felix Akpara are built for this. Like, these coaches are built for this. These programs are blue bloods. I don't care what you say, UConn is a blue blood at this point.
Is a blue blood.
They've had 6 national championships in 27 years. Argue with me all you want, they're a blue blood. Again, the best version of this game is with Damari and Bilodeau both playing, but with the brand recognition, with the talent, with the coaching, I'm very excited to cover this game tomorrow.
Are you picking UConn?
So Ken Palm has as a 4-point spread, just for what it's worth. Just for like what the stat heads out there, like what it's projected for. I think I'm going to take UCLA. I wish I had how many points. I don't have it in front of me because I don't have the UConn-Furman box score yesterday, just because of the nature of how late the game ended and everything. But how many points do you think UConn scored off of turnovers off Furman? Because Furman did have quite a bit of turnovers.
I don't really have live ball turnovers too often, though.
Yeah, I asked just because, like, I think Donovan Dent is not turning it over is also going to be a huge factor.
Yeah, he doesn't turn the ball over. And I don't think their guards are going to make him turn the ball over.
Okay, points off turnovers. UConn had 14, Furman had 12. So, like, again, it wasn't anything substantial.
Really yeah.
It was points in the paint, 46-24 in favor of UConn.
Yeah, that's where they got it done. I think if, UCLA, I think also has a lot more. You can throw a couple of different looks at Taurus Reed.
Yeah.
You've got Daly, who's, not quite as tall, but he's a big body. You can throw down there. You can throw Booker on him. I know I'm missing a couple of other guys, but you have numbers to throw at him. I don't think Furman had that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty much all I have. Anything else you want to add in terms of either tomorrow, what we saw yesterday?
No, I'm excited.
Okay.
Should be a good couple of games.
And like Virginia, Tennessee, like those are pretty big bets. Virginia won a national championship a couple years ago. Tennessee, like, is again still a national brand. Like, yeah. Are you watching Gonzaga, Texas right now?
Gonzaga just lost.
Yeah, I see that. Good for Texas. Good for Sean Miller. Because, like,
we don't look like such a tool.
Yeah.
Someone I know told me that Texas was going to make a run. I called him an idiot.
It's the nature of the beast.
I didn't think the offense was good enough.
Okay. So that's going to conclude this episode. Any questions you guys have that you like want us to try to get in the locker room, asking a press conference, anything like that? Either shoot us a DM at the @BB, comment on this video, whatever. Your best way of communicating with us, we will reciprocate it. But yeah, follow us on all socials at the @BB. Check out our Substack at thecenterhub.substack.com. You can follow me on Twitter for live updates tomorrow. Follow me on Twitter either way, but we'll be tweeting out live updates tomorrow at _NBAGEL. That's NBAGELL. You follow Julian, same thing. Follow him anyway at 12J Mendel. And yeah, we will be there tomorrow in Philly. Today, if you're listening to this on Sunday. But otherwise, yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we will talk to you soon.